Alright guys, welcome back to Yo Spill, and in tonight's video, it's nothing but bad news. So, as you guys seen, I tore the G22 out of this thing, got it all apart, had all the motors out. Literally all I did was put ARP head studs in this motor. I checked one of the bearings look brand new. But, as you can see, it's in the car. I went over all the sensors and everything. I have spark, I have fuel, but it doesn't run. And usually when that happens on an unknown condition motor, the first thing you should check is the compression. And I looked it up online. Most f20bs with good compression check in around 220 to 270, depending on the condition of the motor. And I ran a compression test on this one, and we get 70, 70, 90, and 140. So, even though I've done all the work, I put the motor in the car and got trans, everything all there, all wired up, injectors, E85, everything's there. It doesn't run. Like, it literally puffs. Like, it won't even. Here, I can turn it over. Oh, there's no plugs in it right now. But, compression tester. If I flip the. Actually, I have a push button start. I've been turning it over so much that I just made a push button for it. With 5 oh, well, I did want a little more revolutions with the motor. You can see right there. We barely hit 90. So, we're going to be taking it back apart. We're going to pull the cylinder head off, pull everything apart, and see what's wrong. Not the news we wanted. So, I guess we're going to be rebuilding the f20b that we thought was good. And then we'll get it to run right. Hopefully. Alright, so as you see, there's no cylinder head, there's no intake manifold, there's no header. There's also no oil pan, no intake or no oil pan pickup, no windage tray, and I pulled the first piston. So this is cylinder number 2. This is the one that had the lowest compression. See the rings? There's no play in the rings at all. Look at the ring gap. I don't know if you can see that on camera. But literally the rings are touching. Like, I can push on the rings and they don't move at all. So literally this motor has no rings. It needs re-ringed. I'm going to pull out the rest of the pistons, and hopefully there's no broken ringlands. That's very popular in F-Series. When you apply too much timing, it'll crack the ringland, kind of like a Subaru, what Subarus are known for. Hondas do that too. That's not just a Subaru problem. Once you have high compression and boost, you crack ringlands or pistons come apart, as you've seen on many YouTube videos. But cylinder number 2, success so far. No broken ringlands that I see. I can clean these pistons up. The rods look perfect. The bearings look phenomenal. So those will get reused. Hopefully I just have to order a set of rings, and I'll be very happy. But let's get to pulling the rest of the pistons out. Hopefully there's no broken ringlands. Alright guys, so piston number 3. The cylinder walls aren't the greatest, but they're not really bad at all. As somebody that builds engines, this is hilarious right here. This ring and this ring are literally on top of each other. So whenever you set ring gaps on a motor, you can see, look, I can try to turn these rings and they don't move at all. So that tells me this motor has no compression at all. These rings are doing absolutely nothing down in the cylinder. You never set this ring and this ring exactly on top of each other, because literally the compression is just going to go from here to here to here, and these are your oil scrapers, and it's just going to go right past it. I don't understand what they were doing. I don't really know. But once I get the other 2 pistons out and I verify that I don't need pistons, I'll actually tell you a little backstory on this motor and how I acquired it. Because that will explain more of why we have this problem. Alright guys, so we have all 4 pistons and rods out of the F20B. If you look here, the upper ring still has a little elasticity to it, or basically a little spring to it still. But the bottom ring, the second ring, the oil rings, nothing. These completely solidly stuck in the pistons. These solidly stuck in the pistons. And this one, the top ring, could potentially, make a little compression. Like I said, this cylinder and this cylinder actually tested at like 140 or 150. This cylinder tested, I believe, like 70. And then these two is where I was like, this motor has to come apart. Because they tested super low. Like, they tested like 70 or something. So I knew there was an issue. But you always have to take it apart and check it out. But the bearings themselves literally look like they have maybe like very little runtime on them. So now we can get into the story of how I actually got this F20B. So now it's story time. Years and years back, we had a group called Florida Accords, or FAO. I had my CD7, which is my green car that I'm K-swapping, or I'm going to K-swap on the channel. We had a bunch of H cars. We had some F20B cars. We had a bunch of swaps going on all at once. It was a big group of friends. And this motor came up because we helped a friend swap it into his car. It had a balance shaft leak kit, had oil pressure issues or something like that. And then it ran really horribly. One of the dudes in the group rebuilt it, supposedly rebuilt it. I can't say if he actually rebuilt it, who knows. But it was supposedly rebuilt. So that's why I kind of had faith in the motor that it at least had good bearings and everything and it wasn't going to knock. But I purchased this motor for, I believe, $200. The tensioner bolt was snapped off in the block. I drilled it out and put new threads in it and upgraded it to a 5/8 bolt. It's not using a metric bolt. It's actually using an American 5/8 bolt. So this F20B does have a manual tensioner off of like a H23. If you don't know what I'm even talking about, H series, H22s, H23s, and F20Bs have like a hydraulic style tensioner. They're known to fail. You can buy a thing to convert it into a manual tensioner, or you could just use a manual tensioner off another F series. I have tons of these motors laying around, as you guys can tell. These are kind of what I used to focus on before I had a dyno and got into tuning or anything like that. These were all I pretty much played with. So I've probably built, I would say, at least 15 G22 or G23 setups. I've helped a lot of people put them together. I've got a lot of questions about it on Instagram and everything like that. If you have any questions, DM me. I'll try to answer everything I can. But it is what it is. So I literally purchased this motor for, I believe, $200 or $250, something cheap. It was dirt cheap because we know it had the tensioner issue, and then it was supposedly rebuilt, but then it still had issues, and then the tensioner bolt was snapped or whatever. So I was hoping that it was a good condition motor, but the cylinder head was what I was told was the issue. So I had actually swapped it for another F20B cylinder head I had laying in the shop, hoping that would fix it. But I should have dug deeper. I should have pulled it apart and just bought rings from it for the start. I'm going to rebuild this motor in the car. I'm not taking this motor out of the car. The transmission's hooked up, the axle's in, the shifter's in, and I have modified the shifter. I put an Accord shifter in it. I took out the plastic Prelude shifter I used to have because I hated how it shifted. It actually has a custom short probe that was in my CD7. So I'm going to order some rings for this thing. I'm going to check the bearings with plastic gauge. The main bearings and the oil pump seem to be perfect. The cylinder head was full of oil and I took it apart. So I don't see any oil pressure issues. Yeah, we're going to do an old school in the car, re-ring, bearing, put it back together, and see how she runs. Hopefully we can get at least 220 compression on all 4 cylinders. That'd be my goal, at least 220. If it's really, really good, like if I hone it and make the cylinder walls perfect, I've seen F20Bs up to 270. If it makes 270 compression on all 4 cylinders, this thing will make with a UR intake manifold, a tri-Y PLM header, and a full 3-inch exhaust, it should make about 220 wheel in the 85. I can't guarantee that. Who knows? Every motor's different. But it should make 200 to 220 wheel. And like I said, when I'm done with this project of putting it back together on a budget, I plan on selling this car, selling it to somebody so they can have fun with it. Because I had my fun with it. I had a whole winter and a half of driving it around, going through the mountains. It has Rev 9 coilovers. Like I said, it has a full 3-inch exhaust, 2 resonators, and a vibrant muffler. It's full mandrel bent. It has the PLM Tri-Y. It's going to have a UR intake manifold. It's going to have 1000cc FIC injectors in it. It's only 85 currently. It has a 450 Ti automotive intake pump. I'm going to put it on pump gas, just so we can do videos of the K24 Green Integra versus the F20b EK. That's kind of the end goal for this. Is I know how much money I spent putting a K24, a stock K24 A2 with a 6-speed transmission together. So now the goal is to see how much with parts I have laying around, how much it cost me to put the F20B together with the M2Y4. So that'll be the end of the video. Hopefully you enjoyed the little story time. And yeah, the F20B, bad piston rings. I'm going to check over the cylinder head as well while I have it apart just to make sure. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, like, comment, subscribe. We're going to be waiting on parts, so there probably won't be a video for a little bit. And see you guys in the next one.